What's up, guys? Sam here, and in this video, I'm going to break down the process of getting a real estate lead, so a potential home buyer or a seller, and how to get them in person for a listing appointment or a buyer's consultation. And after helping over 1,000 real estate agents get more clients and sell more homes, I've noticed that the agents who are able to make an additional 300 grand or more per year in commissions just through lead generation have a really good understanding of this stuff. Whether they're doing it themselves, actually calling the leads and booking appointments for themselves, or they've hired an expert ISA from us to call the leads and set appointments, they know this stuff really well. So in this video, first, I just want to go over the introduction for any real estate conversation with a new lead. And then I'm going to go over the discovery and the close in depth with our sales coach, Carlos. All right, so let's get into the computer and get started right now. So let's begin with the introduction to the initial conversation with any real estate lead. And the introduction sounds almost the exact same every single time, except for this part where you might have to customize based on what source the lead came from and what ad they clicked on specifically. So in this case, the lead came in from a Facebook ad for a list of homes in Calgary. All right. And the importance of the introduction, as Jordan Belfort says, the Wolf of Wall Street, is you have to make a good first impression. And you do so by sounding sharp as a tack, like an expert in your field, and enthusiastic as hell. All right. So here's how it sounds. Hi, is this John? Hi, John, this is Sam with Remax. How's it going? Cool. I'm calling because you clicked our Facebook ad for homes in Calgary. So, how's your home search going? That's the initial question, and from there, the lead is going to give us an initial response. So, let's start the training with Carlos because that's where we begin. There's basically 4 things that a lead could respond with once you open up with, how's your home search going? They can respond in 4 different ways, right?
You should actually be breaking the training up into 3 parts. That other video you have already talks about how to handle the intro. So
Yeah.
when you ask, how's your home search going? You're going to get either it's going good, it's going bad, I'm just browsing, or I'm not interested, right? So they're giving 3 levels of interest. If they say it's going good, or it's going bad, that's a high level of interest, right? They're either in a good situation or a bad situation, but they're interested. If it's going either good or bad, there's a high level of interest. Now, if they say they're just browsing, they're like, I was just looking, right? What
Mm-hmm.
level of interest is that?
Low.
There's a low level. So we have to get them interested, right? But how do we get someone interested without knowing their situation?
You
Right?
can't.
So that's why that question is there. Are you a current homeowner? Right? That's going to let us know if they're a homeowner, we know they were either looking to downsize, upsize, relocate, or an investment home. If they're not a homeowner, then they were probably looking to buy their first home. Okay, so after we know that they're if they are a homeowner, what were you looking to do? We're just going to ask one direct question. What were you looking to do? What were your plans? What were your original? However you want to ask it, but they're going to tell you, I wanted to do this, but this is in the way. Right? We were looking at buying a smaller house, but homes are too expensive, or we were looking to upsize, but interest rates are too high. Right? If you don't get a but, you ask that next question. What's holding you back? Right? Once you have the problem, you can start offering solutions. If they say
Mm.
they're not a homeowner, again, we could assume that they're renting. So we would ask, is this your first time buying a home? And if it is, we give 2 incentives to get them interested, right? Whether it's lower interest rates, whether it's lower interest rates for new construction, grants for up to 20,000, 7,000, whatever you want, whatever your agent's offering, right? And then the last one, not interested, well, they're showing no interest, but we know the interest was there because they had to click on the ad and they had to fill out a landing page, right? So we know there
Mhm.
was interest at some point. So that's why that question comes up. What made you change your mind, right? We're accepting that they're not interested now, but we're curious about what made them turn around,
Because they just
right?
clicked an ad saying they were interested, indicating they were
Exactly.
interested.
That's the reason these questions are there. That other script thinks for you. Actually, that other script doesn't let you engage. It's goes directly from you're looking, what are you looking for? Right. And then at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the call, you don't sell your agent in any way. And when we have that, you're setting up 20 appointments for 2 people that are going to show up. Right. That's not good.
Once we handle the initial response, where do we go from
Once you
there?
make it past any of these,
Yeah.
that's when you jump into the body of the script, which is your template. There's 7 questions you got to collect from each lead, from buyers, and 6 from a seller. And I mean, you should go into the follow up questions as well, right? When you ask, do you have a lender? If they say yes, what's a good question to follow up with?
When did you get pre-approved?
Yeah. And if they say yes again, what are we going to follow up with now?
Or for what amount?
There you go, the amount. Now, if they're showing some resistance, then we would want to learn more and ask, well, when were you approved? Because if it was 2 months ago and the thing is only good for 3 months, then you got to buy now, right? or else they're gonna
Mm-hmm.
have to rerun your credit. It's gonna go down. You're gonna have to get so there's certain things that you want to ask, and not just do you have a lender. Even for criteria, you always ask anything else, anything else. I wouldn't do that because then you sound like a checklist, right?
Mm.
So I would ask one time, what are you looking for in your home? And they're gonna give you basically, Sam. The only thing you need is beds and baths. Honestly, that's all you need to set up a search. You don't need to know whether they want pool, walk-in closet, countertops, hardwood floors. Some MLS do provide a more in-depth search, but the more they have, the less they're gonna get, right?
Right. The more specific they're getting. Yeah. They could be
What
filtering
we
out
need is
places they
beds
don't
and
like.
baths, right? We
Yeah.
could they could go out and look at homes and say they don't like them there, but at least by that point they're working with the agent. That's the
Yeah.
main thing. And then I would still ask one time anything else you need for those special cases where they have family member in a wheelchair and they need a ramp, or they need an open concept with no doors because whatever, right? Or no stairs because they're getting older. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna get a lot of that in the motivation as well, right? You're going to get a
Right.
better idea. So there's no reason to ask, well, anything else, or do you want a garage? Of course they want a garage, whether or not they can
Right.
afford it or it's available in the area. That's something else, right?
Right. But what's most
If
important for them, though?
yeah, if it's because you have ISAs asking, do you want a pool? But Sam, we know some markets don't have pools, right? So
Fair enough.
there's no reason we need to get super specific. We let them get specific and we ask it once. Anything else you need, right?
Mhm.
And then
So
the
just
next
go one,
question.
1 to 2 levels deep and then move on.
Yeah, two tops. What do you
Mm-hmm.
need in a home? We let them answer to their heart's content, right? And then we would ask anything else you need.
Okay.
Next question, areas of interest. Basically, here what you're teaching them is how to ask the question, because what we're getting a lot right now in training is, do you know the area you want? Do you have a
Mm-hmm.
budget in mind? Well, of course they do. And what I tell them is, okay, if they're paying attention to the question and they answer your question, what do you have to do now? Well, now you got to follow up with another question. If I ask, do you have a budget, and they say yes, what do I now have to ask?
What is
What's
it?
your budget?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's get rid of the would you, could you, do you, or if, and let's just ask with what, when, where, and how, right? So and this part I do like what you do. So you ask, what area are you looking to move to, right? Um, and then they'll tell you, I'm looking to move to LA, right? And then the question you ask, what's the question you always ask next?
What has you interested in LA specifically?
There you
Yeah.
go. And those are engaging questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's something you could ask, but not necessarily have to ask, right? It all
Right.
depends on how the conversation. If you could tell they're hurrying you think it's important to ask what brings you to LA. But if you're having a great conversation and you could get more information out of it, then yeah, I would definitely ask. Now, committed to an agent, right? I always start off with, are you working with an agent,
Right. Are you
or
working with an
have you
agent? Yes or no?
spoken to any agents?
Mm-hmm. Okay. And if yes, got it. Have you signed anything with them? And then if
If they
yes,
say yes, well, I mean, you could follow up with, how long ago did you sign, and put those in your notes for your agent to call later on, right? Or you could just inform me, seeing as how you're already being represented, it's actually unethical for us to continue working with you. We wish you the best of luck, right? And then timeline, again, going to the what, when, where, and how. That's when. When are you looking to make the move? When would you like to be in your new home? I had
and then
a
if
ISA yesterday asked, when do you want to close? I'm like, close on what? What does that mean? I'm a new person, right? I'm a first time buyer. You asking me about closing the door? What do you want?
right, they're new
No,
to this
right?
process.
So we want to be very easy. We want to ask very easy questions.
When are you looking to
Simple.
make the move?
When are you looking to make the move? Right.
And
Now,
and then if
anytime you
it's
get
over,
an answer over 3 months or over, you should be following up with what's making you wait that time. Right. Especially for those two scenarios at the top. Well, no, actually, the very first scenario, which is when they say it's going good, right? In that situation right there, they're not presenting a problem. They're not. And all we're doing is breaking that down into what could be making it going good. So we ask, are you working with an agent? And then from there, we go directly into criteria. So far, we haven't touched any problems. There isn't
right?
anything in the way of them buying. So
Mm,
we need to find out what their situation is. So by asking timeline, if anytime we get something over 3 months, we need to ask, what's making you wait that time? Or what has you waiting 4 months? Right. And
mm,
and from there you could get all kinds of responses. Some that you could help with, like, I've got to work on my credit score. We're working on a down payment. We're waiting for interest rates to go down. And others you can't help. You can't do nothing for. Like, hey, we're gonna retire in 6 months. That's why we're gonna do it then, right? Or our kids are moving out at the end of the school year, and we're gonna wait till they're out of the house. So there's really nothing you could do other than set up a call for, whatever it is they're planning to do. If especially if they're homeowners, let's at least get an idea of where you're gonna be looking at in the future. Problems problems are something we have to work out of them. A lot of the times they're not gonna tell us. So again, that's why this script, I like it so much more than the other one.
And then in terms of the timeline, let's say they're looking to move in 6 months. Is now a good time to set up a meeting, whether it's an ISA booking a call with the agent or an agent setting up a meeting with the home buyer or seller?
And it depends on what that meeting is for. If you're setting up a meeting just to talk about a list of homes, do you think they're gonna show up when they don't have to make a move for 6 months?
It's not on the top of their priority list.
But if they're 10 or 15 points down on their credit score and they're waiting to wait 6 months, and we're selling them on the idea that they don't have to wait that long, or we could get them to where they need to get sooner, do you think now they have a bigger reason to talking to our agent, even though their original timeline is 6 months?
Now's a great time to start working on that credit to make sure we can move in 6 months or less.
Exactly. Exactly. So again, if we're not giving those solutions to problems, they have no reason to show up.
Right.
Every lead thinks that what they need now is a list of homes, but it's not. It's not. What they need is guidance on the actual process.
Right.
So next thing,
Or
motivation. Uh, what has you looking at homes, or what has you looking at buying a home, or if you already know their situation, what's motivating you to downsize, right? Because downsizing is not a motivation. Upsizing, downsizing, investment homes, those are not motivations. Those are situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's motivating them to downsize? Is it
Mm-hmm.
that they're getting older and they can't go upstairs anymore? For upsize, do they have a family member in a wheelchair or special needs and needs more space? Or relocating? Are they just looking to move closer to family, or looking to go to a specific school district? Right, those are motivations.
Right.
Our agents could use those, one, to provide more information or better accommodations for their search, and
Mm.
two, it's a great talking point, especially if the agent could relate in any way.
We're going to get a good idea of their current situation here and also where they want to be and therefore find their challenge if we figure out this key piece. What has you looking to make the move? Why are you looking to sell? You've been in your home for 20 years. What has you wanting to sell it and move on?
Now, remember, for those listening, we want to ask one question at a time. Sam asked three questions there. They were all the same thing, but they could all get a different response. Right.
Right.
So we want to keep it simple, one question at a time.
You need to stay organized on these calls. Be very clear and concise. Ask one question at a time and do not bounce around between topics. I see a lot of reviewing a lot of ISAs and agent calls. They're asking a little bit of criteria and then their area and then going back to criteria and then talking about budget and then talking about their timeline and then talking about their lending situation. It makes it very disorganized and the lead doesn't feel very confident that you know what you're doing in your process. You want to make it seem like to the lead you've done this a million freaking times and you're an expert at what you're doing here. And so the cleaner you can keep the conversation, the better. You want to keep it on the straight line, right? Straight Line Selling by Jordan Belfort. Great book, by the way.
Right.
After we get the motivation, we get into price.
Yeah, and there's no uh, order. There isn't. You can start a conversation with price. If they tell you things are not going good and you ask, what's making it not good, and they tell you I can't afford any of the homes, you wouldn't start at criteria, right? You would start at price. So it's not one thing that you jump to another. You should always have your template out to see what you're missing, right? And you could bounce from bottom to top or top to bottom. But yeah, going into price, you know, how much, right? That's the how. What, when, where, and how, right? You could either do how or what. What are you looking to spend? How much do you want to, how much do you want to spend? What budget are you looking at, right? And I don't know, you could get pretty creative there. If they tell you 500,000, you could ask, what made you decide on that price, and then let them open up, or you could go directly into the lender, which is the next part down, and ask, have you been pre-approved? Or first of all, have you spoken to a lender about that? Have you been pre-approved? And how much was that pre-approval for? I would always ask that because the pre-approval and their price range doesn't always match. I'd say about 75% of the time it doesn't match. They're
Right.
either looking to overspend or underspend, and we want to get an idea of why. So
What they can actually afford based on the
yeah,
numbers. Yeah. And so that's going to be also potentially a value proposition that could get you a meeting with that person. Is if the lead hasn't been pre-approved, we work with a great team of lenders who have access to fantastic programs that could really help them get pre-approved and save money on their purchase and potentially get pre-approved for more.
and for those of you listening, your agent is going to have those value propositions, right? There's everything ranging from lower interest rates if you're interested in new construction homes, to buying your rates down, There's working on credit score to help you qualify for more through credit repair programs. There's also zero down payment programs, down payment assistance with grants up to 25,000, depending on the area. Some are 7,000, 5,000, or closing cost assistance as well. So those are all different things that some agents provide. It's going to be important for you to ask your agent what they're offering. Another one is off-market listings. Not all the agents work with those, but basically those are houses that you won't find on the MLS. People working with FISBOs, expireds, or doing circle prospecting or geofarming, uh, exclusive list that they only work with.
And this is extremely important because you're talking about value propositions and things that are going to help you solidify a meeting with the lead. Whether you're an ISA or an agent, you got to have your value propositions ready to make a strong close. A close is going to get that lead to agree to a meeting, not only agree to the meeting, but also show up excited to meet you, right? So what Carlos was just going over, access to lenders who have access to different programs like down payment assistance, better interest rates, etc. Having access to off-market properties. What are some other value propositions? If they're a first-time home buyer, we would have figured that out like in the motivation or earlier. First-time home buyer program, where you can get access to little to no down payment assistance, better interest rates, and maybe a handful of other things. That's another great value proposition. Just having access and help into finding the best home and the best deal, best price, and the best location. I mean, that's going to be another great value proposition.
The other day, you were talking with an agent that said if they don't sell your house in 2 months, they buy your house, right?
Come on, there you go. Guaranteed home sold program.
That's a value proposition there, right?
Absolutely. And so these are things you want to have ready, whether you're an ISA or an agent, to make for a strong close. And you're going to tailor those to the lead because not all of them apply. If you got an excellent first-time homebuyer program, you're not going to mention that to somebody who's a current homeowner because they don't qualify for that, right? But you would mention that if they're a first-time homebuyer, and you would know they're a first-time homebuyer if you do a proper discovery here. So we got the buyer conversation out of the way. We got all of our criteria. We have a good idea of their current situation, where they want to be, and hopefully their challenge with getting there. But let's say it's a homeowner. We want to collect a little bit of information on the current home, right? On their seller situation before we move on. So how do we kind of make the transition into a seller conversation if we figured out they were a homeowner earlier in the call?
It really doesn't matter where it happens, whether it's early, middle, or end of the call. But at some point, either through motivation or through the situation, you're going to find out whether they're a homeowner. Now, in that once you're there, I would ask, what are you planning to do with the home you're in now? So if they're saying, you know what, we're looking to sell our house and buy another one, right? So now we know that they're a homeowner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, we wouldn't ask, what are you planning to do? Because we already know they're looking to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, the question I would ask is, are you looking to sell before you buy or buy before you sell? That right there is going to tell me what I'm going to close on. If they need to sell first because they need that money to use for the investment of the next home, then I'm not going to set up a phone call. I'm going to go for an in-person appointment for comparative market analysis. They tell me they need to buy first because they need somewhere to go. Then yeah, I'm going to sell them on a phone call or a buyer's consultation in the office. And really depends on where they're at, whether they've been approved or not. What I'm going to sell them on.
So let's say their motivation is they want to upsize. They're looking to sell their home. They got to sell before they buy. We've got
Find
that
that out
part.
at the beginning, then I would
Yeah.
definitely start with are you looking to buy before you sell or sell before you buy, right? Because
Cool.
if they need to sell first, then I'd rather get this information first and then hop back to the buyer side. And then at
Okay.
the end, I'm going to close with the seller side. I've seen so many conversations go bad because a lead says they want to buy a house and they're going to sell, but their interest right now is on the buying side, and the ISA is or the agent is too focused on, well, tell me more about your house. I'm like, well, you don't need to know about my house. I'm looking, can you help me on the buying side? They're like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we could help you on both. How much do you want to sell for? It's like, yo, are you not listening to what I'm saying? I'm more interested on the buyer side right now, right?
Mm-hmm. And
So
that would
that's
open the
why
door for
that
them to sell.
question, are you looking to buy first or sell first?
Mm.
Right? That's going to let us know, hey, which one do we need to focus on, at least at the beginning of this call? And then we could always jump into the, so if they need to sell first, I'd rather get this info first and then move back to the buyer. They need to
Mm-hmm.
buy first. I want to show them that I'm conscious of what they're saying. I'm going to get all the buyer side first, then move on to the seller side. And then at the end, I'm going to close on whichever is more important.
Got it. And then, so at any point of the call, if we figure out they're a homeowner, should that be the kind of the next question? It's like, got it. And do you need to sell before you buy?
I
Got it.
wouldn't do it when we find out they're a homeowner. I would do it once we find out what they're going to do with that home.
Yeah.
So if we know they're a homeowner, your first question should be, uh,
Mm.
are you going to be selling the house you're in now? Now, if we find out they're a seller, then yeah, I would ask whether they need to sell first or buy first.
That makes a lot of sense. Got
Whichever
it.
one of those two pieces of information come out first dictates what your next question is. Do you need
Yeah.
to sell first or buy first? And if you know they're a homeowner, what are you going to do with the house you're in now?
What do you plan on doing with that house? Yeah, because they could either sell it, rent it out, keep it,
And we
right?
don't want to assume anything. We always want to make sure we get the information from them.
Okay. So now we're in the seller conversation. Now we're going to get their house description. So tell me a little bit more about the house that you're currently in. What does that look like?
In this one here, that's and on the seller template, that is the question I would always start off with, because
Right.
people love to talk about what they have,
Right.
right? Even if it's the crappiest house ever, they're going to want to talk about how crappy it is. So I always start off with house description on the seller side, right?
Got it.
And then
How
from
do you frame the
there,
question? Just tell me more about
just
the
like
house
you,
you're in
tell me
now.
more. Yeah, tell me about the house you're in now.
Okay.
And this is something I learned from one of my mentors a long time ago. When we're talking to sellers, we want to say the word house. When we're talking to buyers, we want to use the word home. Right? We want to
Mhm.
associate them to where they're going or where they're leaving or what they're leaving
Ah,
behind. Right. So
cool.
tell me more about the house you're in now. And then they're gonna talk. They're gonna talk. We already have one. If we started off at the top, we probably already have some of these points. If not, we're gonna ask them. Same way as before. Motivation doesn't change. Right.
Right.
What has you thinking about selling and doing this?
When
Timeline.
when you looking to make the move?
Yeah.
When you looking to
When are you
sell?
looking to make the move? Yeah, again, it really depends on how the conversation is going. If they say they want to sell, then yeah, when are you looking to sell? But if they're still iffy on whether or not they're going to do it, or whether or not they're going to make the move or not, then yeah, when are you planning to make this move?
And we might have already got that
Yeah,
if we had the buyer conversation. Yeah.
yeah, because every lead, whether it's a downsizer or a list of homes, they're all targeting buyers. So we should all start the conversation as if we're trying to handle the buyer situation, right? If you already have whether or not they're working with an agent on top, on the bottom for seller, you would ask, and are you working with an agent to help you sell, right? You want to make
Right.
sure you make it clear on the
Yep.
selling side.
Good point. And then price point. Do you know what your home is worth?
How much are you planning to get for your home?
Cool.
Or how much are you looking to get for your home?
Okay. Let's say they give
Or
you a number.
what would
I'm
you
hoping.
list yeah, how much would you list your home for? Right?
I'm thinking 650,000.
How'd you come up with that price?
My neighbor sold their home for 600, a few months ago, and I've made some renovations to my kitchen, and I think mine's worth a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, yeah, regardless of the renovations you've made, the market's actually going up, and a lot of people are selling their house for a lot more than what they thought they would. I'd love for you to get a better idea of what your house could sell for. What's the address of your home?
Right.
I gave them a reason to give me the address, right?
Right.
I'm telling them they could probably sell for more. What what's the address? You would give me an address, and then after that point, I would say, here's what I'm going to do for you. My agent Blue, she's actually going to be out around your area, this weekend or next weekend. I'd love for her to give you a better idea of what your house could sell for in this market. Who knows? You might be asking too little. It's completely free. What time could she stop by on Saturday?
Nice. And that would work for an ISA or an agent.
Yeah.
They'd be setting up the same kind of appointment there. Nice. Very good. So that was a fantastic close for a homeowner who's looking to sell. Let's see us a first-time home buyer. You didn't get to the seller conversation because they're not a homeowner. How would you close for an appointment like that if you were an ISA?
Well, what's their situation? Do they need help with their credit? Are they
Uh,
interested in the down payment assistance? Are they looking for lower interest rates? What's the situation?
so,
Again, you always got to refer back to that. If they're having problems with their credit, right? First of all, throughout the conversation, I hope we asked, what their situation looks like, what their credit, at least a ballpark of where their credit's at, because we want to know if it's a problem or not. I've heard agents that some agents could work with as little as 580 credit score. I heard another agent that said they could have zero credit score. It doesn't matter, right? So again, we should be curious about their situation, and at the end, we should be selling them on whatever idea or or value we could provide, right?
how we're going to help them solve their situation and make
Exactly.
that.
But again, the key of the close is not to offer the solution, is to tell them the solution and set up whatever comes next, right?
Right.
So if they need help with the down payment, and you could offer zero down payment or down payment assistance programs, what your close should sound like is, hey Sam, so earlier you told me you were having, the hardest part for you is getting that down payment together, right? Now my agent again works with some great lenders who offer down payment assistance programs, and sometimes even zero down. Now I'd love for you to learn more about that, and then from there, really depends on what you want or what your agent wants, whether they want in-person appointments or transfers or phone calls. At least myself, when I was making calls, my go-to first was transfer, and
Hmm.
then in person, and then phone call, because it goes from the most invasive to least invasive, right? So it would be, hey, I'd love for Blue to tell you more about these programs so we can show you exactly what we can do for you. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna get Blue on the line.
Excellent.
Then if you interrupt and say, "Oh, I can't do that," hey, not a problem. Um, you know, if the next thing you want to go for is in person, I'd love for you to meet up with Blue so she could show you, right, the statistics on what that would look like, how soon we could get you into your home. We actually have a few offices around, some here and here. When's a good time for you to stop by? And if they say no, well, hey, at least get in there for a call. I'd still love for Blue to give you this info. What time tomorrow are you available for a quick call?
Excellent. And if you were an agent making this call on your own behalf, I guess your go-to would be first an in-person appointment.
Yeah, I mean, in-person appointments always work out a lot better. Most of the time, what you're selling is what the lender's going to do to help. So unless you work in the same office with your lender, or your lender agrees to go to your office, or what I recommend doing for the agents that don't have any of those two options, I would still bring them into your office and then get the lender on a Zoom call. So at least you're in front of them and they can still talk to the lender once they're at your office.
I love that. Get them in person, start off the relationship, do some sort of buyer's consultation, show them what's available, and then loop in your lender either in person or on Zoom on that initial appointment. A worst case scenario, if they're not up to meeting you in person or booking a call or live transfer with the agent, if you're an ISA, let them know that you'll send them the list, ask when they can look at the list, and then set up a follow-up call for the day after that.
Is the list going to be enough to motivate them?
Probably not.
So what's holding them back from making the move? Or what's
Right.
holding them back from looking at their options?
We want to get to the core of that.
Right. So there's so many lists out on the web they could look at. Right. There's a lot of places like Zillow, Realtor.com, YLocal, Trilio, Twilio, so many places. So if one of those places or a home online hasn't convinced them yet, what's your list going to do for them? Right.
Right. And that's why we don't want to rely on the list. It's how we can get their information, get them interested in the beginning. But throughout the call, the goal is to find their challenges, situation where they want to be, figure out what the challenge is, explain to them that we can help with that, and then use that as a way to get them to the next step, which is a meeting.
They stayed on a call with either the ISA or the agent for 7 to 10 minutes, and then at the end didn't agree to what was said, then something was missing from that conversation. They were
Right.
waiting to hear something that would push them to making the move, and they didn't hear it.
Cool, guys. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions on the appointment setting process, whether you're an agent or an ISA, reach out to us in school, and we'll see you on the live collab calls.